The past week has been a pretty busy week, with 5 orbital launches from all around the world, lots of new updates and changes at Starbase, the first B4 engine got installed into a Vulcan booster, Ariane 6 gets fully stacked, and lots more. Last week began with the launch of a Falcon 9 with Hotbird 13F in the payload fairing. After over 2 hours of delays, the Falcon 9 rocket with booster B1069 finally lifted off from Space Launch Complex 40 at 1:22 a.m. Eastern Time. The first stage successfully burned before MECO, stage SEP, and stage 2 ignition. The first stage, B1069, began its descent phase of flight by deploying the grid fins and activating the cold gas nitrogen thrusters. Payload fairing separation occurred, which then exposed the Hotbird 13F spacecraft to the vacuum of space. Stage 1 re-entry burn occurred, which was then followed by a successful landing on the Just Read the Instructions drone ship positioned out in the Atlantic Ocean. Hotbird 13F then was deployed into a geostationary transfer orbit at around 2+30 minutes, which marked the end of another successful mission for SpaceX. Following just around 14 hours later, an Angara 1.2 launch of the Plesetsk Cosmodrome in Russia. This rocket carried the Cosmos 2560 satellite into a sun-synchronous orbit. Liftoff occurred at 3:55 p.m. Eastern Time, but not much else is known about this mission. After a few days of silence, SpaceX launched another Falcon 9 rocket from Space Launch Complex 40, with Starlink 4-36 on board. Liftoff occurred at 10:50 a.m. on October 20th. People at the press had captured this great shot of a giant bird flying over Falcon 9. Like always, the mission was a success, with both the booster landing and the payloads being deployed successfully. Then on Friday, Roscosmos launched the Soyuz 2.1V from Site 43-4 at the Plesetsk Cosmodrome in Russia. This mission carried 2 classified satellites into a sun-synchronous orbit for the Russian military. On Saturday the 22nd, there were 2 launches back-to-back. The first launch was the launch of the GSLV Mk3 from India, carrying 36 OneWeb satellites into a low Earth orbit. Liftoff occurred at 2:37 p.m. with the mission resulting in a success. The second launch of the day was the Soyuz 2.1B from Site 1S at the Vostochny Cosmodrome in Russia. Liftoff occurred at 3:57 p.m. with 4 satellites in the payload fairing. This mission also resulted in a success. The next launch we expect to see is an ISS resupply mission. The Progress MS-21 mission will launch atop a Soyuz 2.1A from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. This mission will carry thousands of pounds of equipment and supplies to the crew aboard the station. Liftoff is scheduled for Tuesday, October 25th, 2022 at 8:20 p.m. Eastern Time. 2 days later, a SpaceX Falcon 9 will launch from Slick 4 East at the Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. This mission, Starlink 4-31, will carry another stack of Starlink satellites to low Earth orbit. The first stage is booster B1063, which will be flying for the 8th time and perform a landing on the SpaceX drone ship Of Course I Still Love You, which will be positioned in the Pacific Ocean. The final launch for the week is a Launcher 1 rocket, which will launch from the United Kingdom. This will be the first ever launch from the UK, so it'll be exciting to see this launch. The launch is scheduled for Saturday, October 29th at an unknown time. On October 19th, Starship Ship 25 began rolling out to the launch site. Approximately an hour after Ship 25 arrived at the launch site, the Squid load spreader was attached to its nose cone. Ship 25 sat attached to the crane overnight, and once morning arrived, it was time to lift Ship 25. The lift commenced with the Ship 25 being lifted and attached to suborbital pad A. Just a few hours later, Ship 24 began its lift onto Booster 7 on the orbital launch pad. After stacking, the ship quick disconnect arm performed a full speed retraction test before being reconnected to Ship 24. Ship 27's nose cone was moved from the low bay to the ring yard, and moments later, Ship 26's partially complete tank section was moved from the high bay into the mid bay. Ship 26's nose cone and barrel section was then moved to the high bay before stacking onto the ship's forward dome section. Booster 7's transport stand was then rolled down Highway 4 and is now at the production site. And finally, the orbital launch site is now being prepared for hopeful testing during tomorrow's scheduled closer. The first Ariane 6 has been stacked. However, this is only a mock-up model to validate the complete rocket pad gantry systems. Not much else is known about this full stack at the moment, but we will bring you all the latest news and information in the next weekly video. The first flight-ready BE-4 engine has been delivered by Blue Origin to the factories. The engine has been installed on the Vulcan booster. The first launch of Vulcan is still set to occur in just a few months. Fingers crossed that the launch stays firm and doesn't slip even further. The Falcon Heavy launch is now set to occur on Monday, October 31st, 2022 at 9:44 p.m. Eastern Time. A Halloween launch. However, I think that SLS should have launched on Halloween. Like, look at it. It's a perfect Halloween rocket. The Falcon Heavy will carry a classified spacecraft called USSF-44 for the U.S. Space Force. This mission will feature a dual-side booster landings on LZ-1 and LZ-2 at Cape Canaveral. However, the center core will be expended due to SpaceX needing that extra performance.